Matt, I think you need to turn your volume up.
Can everyone hear me now? Good. All right. So sorry, this is Matt Coombs. I really appreciate the opportunity to communicate the experience that we've had with a combination of technologies. A little bit about us is we're a small college located just south of the Bay Area in Salinas, California. And the challenge that we have is that we cover our community college district actually covers a very large area. There's 3 different centers that are separated by almost an hour's travel time. And we also have a very small IT staff. We only have 2 computer technicians and 2 lab technicians in total that we have managing over 2,500 different computers in lab situations, offices, and classrooms. We have a limited budget, and we can't charge a technology fee, so we have to be very careful with every dollar we spend. Yet we still want to deliver the expected technology framework that allows instructors to do their job and for students to get access to the services and the applications that they want. The challenge that I had coming to the school 3.5 years ago was that the campus had made a lot of really good choices in providing open access computers, but every computer we added an additional burden to already a strained IT staff. We also were running out of disk space, and we were also being challenged to try to create differing environments for different classroom or lab environments. And we'd heard about virtualization, but we hadn't really done much with it. I mean virtualization period. We really only had a few of our applications at a server level virtualized, and we had no desktops. So we really went from having no experience in virtualization to what we're going to explain today, and did so in a very short amount of time. But the goal was to keep costs down, to provide enhanced access, and to make sure that we were also able to maintain those systems whether we were physically in front of them or not. So the different things that we were also concerned about was that because we really had no know-how about virtualization, and we weren't sure that after we spent the money it would actually result in the maintenance advantages that we hoped it would, and we knew that storage was not going to come cheap. We were a little anxious about heading down into this new world. So the transition in was really a combination of doing 3 things. We first had to transition from an operating system of running on Novell to one that was Active Directory. We actually really liked the Novell environment, but it became harder and harder to find applications that would integrate into that environment. So we just sort of saw the writing on the wall and had to make that transition. So just making that transverse experience from one operating system to the next was a challenge in and of itself, and one that met resistance from our IT team because that's what they knew. And then we threw on top of that this very complex, at least what we thought was going to be a complex transition into virtualization. We met with VMware. It just happened to be the virtualization platform that we chose to move forward with. And they were able to, in competition with other platforms, were able to give us the most complete and competitive, from a price standpoint, enterprise environment. The one thing that I try to do in all of my different technology acquisitions is write the contract in such a way that we're never penalized for success. And so part of the benefit of the enterprise license agreement for View is that we would pay X number of dollars for essentially an unlimited set of view clients. And the tipping point to where that ended up being a lot less expensive rather than paying per desktop was somewhere around 500 virtual desktops. And we're way above that now. So putting that in place was key. And then we were trying to eventually provision out at least 2,000, if not all 2,500 of our desktops through a virtual environment. The other challenge that we had was that we had a lot of different applications. Some were academic and some were administrative, and we wanted to make sure that all of those were supported in a virtualized environment. And then we currently only had about 60 terabytes of storage, which was already becoming reaching its capacity. And we'd heard about this thing called IOPS. We had no idea what that word meant. And for those of you that don't on this call, essentially it's the ability or the throughput of data through the entire system. So the speed, the reaction, the nimbleness of your system. You want a virtual desktop to operate at the same speed and reactiveness as your native desktop that most people are using today, because you don't want the experience to get worse. You want it to be at least as good as, if not better. So you can see through all of these different tipping points or aspects, we relied on a set of different partners. And we originally reached out to a number of professional services firms and got lucky enough to stumble upon one out of Fremont, California, KIS. KIS not only had experience in helping us do the conversion from Novell to Active Directory, but also, or to Windows, but they also had a lot of experience in virtualization. So they're the ones that also introduced us to Unidesk and to Tegile, and both those partners, actually all three of those partners, have been instrumental in essentially what could have been an absolute disaster, but resulted in great success. And they each played a part in that, and we'll talk about that as we go through here. And while this is not necessarily commercial for those three partners, I'll just say that in 20 years of working in technology and higher education, the experience that I've had with these three has been absolutely stellar. So it was important for us that that as we started to roll out virtual desktops and to virtualize all of our servers. So we had 37 separate physical pieces of hardware in our server room, and we collapsed that to essentially 2 vertical racks, and those aren't even actually full. So we went from 37 separate pieces of hardware to 6 separate pieces of hardware, and just the savings in maintenance and power was significant. But that is simple in comparison to the next step, which was to now create virtual desktops that, again, had hundreds of different applications that we didn't want to make available to everyone, but to specific labs or specific departments or specific users based on their job and what they were trying to do. And there's absolutely no way we could do that without Unidesk, again, with the small staff that we have. And the other challenge that we had is we actually had a great technology partner for our storage, but the cost for an additional, we figured we would need another 120 terabytes to eventually reach our 2,500 desktops. And we knew that with our current partner, that we couldn't really afford that ramp to that much storage in time, given our budget restraints. And so that's coming across or being introduced to Tegile was really sort of a godsend in that way, because it absolutely got us to our storage capacity, our IOP performance, and not necessarily most importantly, but just to make it possible, it was definitely within our budget. So, so with this, the finding of or being able to be introduced to the folks at KIS is that it became very clear to us in the way that they made the proposal to us and in our interactions with them that they were focusing on the people that I had on my staff, not just the project. And so they became aware of and picked up on very quickly the specific challenges and the skill sets that I had with individual people, and they showed me how I could go from where I was to where we needed to be in order to be successful at both the new Windows operating system environment, but also to the virtualization world that we were dropping into. And not only did they show experience in both those fields, and we checked up on references and all matched up, but just their detailed project management approach showed us that literally at a detailed level we could see the transition going from one to the other. They were nearby for us. That was great. They actually have a pretty good reach throughout different parts of the United States, but the people we were working with were literally only about an hour and a half away. Very responsive, and so the key here is that whoever you choose to help you do this is you just want to make sure that you have, especially if you're as new or green to this as we were, is that you have someone that you, A, trust, that understands your environment, understands your people, and they've done this before because there are so many different pitfalls that we avoided just because of the experience of the vendor. So the discovery of Unidesk, we really didn't understand the reason why this was such the ace in the hole for the entire process until we really got into it. But sort of, if you've never heard of Unidesk or don't really understand what part they play, if any of you have actually ever gone into the application Photoshop, with Photoshop you can put the base image and then you can actually start playing with filters or layers, and it doesn't actually affect the underlying base image in any way. And then you can actually collapse all of those things together when you're finished and deliver that as a finished creation. Unidesk really does very much the same thing, but in a virtualized environment. So we have close to 1,000 desktops deployed, and we only have one master. So I'll say it again. We have over 100 different applications we deliver to different users and groups and departments and things throughout our campus, and we still only have one golden master or master image, and the rest of it's all done by Unidesk. What's also beautiful about the Unidesk environment, and we'll get into this in greater detail as I turn the time over to Stephen here in a moment, is that we have built our environment so that it's almost fully redundant. And so what we do is we have in the Unidesk environment is that we've split up those desktops into essentially bundles of desktops that are all running in such a way that if any one of those or even multiple of those bundles were to crash for whatever reason, the other bundles would be able to pick up where those others were no longer able to serve the requests coming in from end users. And one of the things that Unidesk does is if I want to deploy a new application, it will automatically apply that layer in an automatic and distributed fashion across those bundles. I don't have to go into each bundle and say add Firefox or add Explorer. So some of just the automation of handling different applications and large groups of desktops has become a very quick and short order effort because of what this technology does. And over the time that we've been with them, I literally have not experienced a more reactive and more customer-friendly vendor in my experience. Not only have I got an answer to questions that I've asked, and I can actually access the CTO, if not other lead executives within the company, as well as read and interact with customers and the knowledge base, which is very extensive, hundreds of videos that show me how to do different things. their reach out to make sure that we're up to speed and trained is also pretty impressive. And their ability to actually support Citrix and Hyper-V and as well as VMware, they support everything across the board. So I knew in going with them that if for whatever reason I chose to move away from my VMware base, I wouldn't lose the benefit. So I love the fact that they essentially were Switzerland in that way. So that just left our last piece, which we really struggled with, again, because we liked the vendor that we had. It was extremely stable and very reliable, but it just came at a pretty good cost to our budget, and we knew that we were only going to have to double, if not triple, what our existing storage base was. And we were a little hesitant, frankly, because Tegile is a new player in the space comparatively to some of the people that or some of the vendors that have been in for a very long time. But they had played a lot with other. Sorry, they'd already been installed. Played is probably the wrong word, but they'd already had experience in a number of our sister institutions or other higher education locations. So I was able to reach out to those, ironically, people that I knew quite well, and they, as soon as I asked the question about Tegile as a partner, as a technology, I couldn't stop them from saying enough good things. So we essentially put one in as a test case and saw three things, which were quite dramatic in comparison. One was that the time of taking the actual storage out of a box and putting it to rack space and having it work was done in less than a few hours. And then once we started putting and transferring key virtual desktops or just data into this environment, it was amazing to watch what was originally taking about, say, 10 terabytes and seeing it reduced to a fraction of that through two different things. There's the advantage of going from raw disk storage using the compression algorithms that are built into Tegile and seeing that reduced in half. And then when you apply the dedupe as well, built in as part of just the operating system of what Tegile delivers, it was then able to almost be reduced again by a significant percentage. So we saw not only was it going to be less expensive per terabyte just out of the box, but we were able to then compress and dedupe, which would just make our dollar go that much further. So you can see from the table in front of you that that what we were storing per desktop or what we're using to support our desktops was significantly more in column 1 than what we were experiencing in column 2. And you can see also the differential in performance as well. We actually use this in an environment that's fiber channel, but the different types of connections are supported across the board by both Tegile hardware and optimized by the software that they have built in under the hood. So we felt like that we had a good team. Essentially, we had a good team deploying. We had a good team training us. We had great software to help provide us ease of use through our environment and ease of maintenance. And we also had a very solid storage environment that would be used for not just our virtual desktop, but to be used pretty much for any type of storage needs we would have on our campus. So if I were to give any recommendations to those that might be anticipating either in the middle of something like the project I just described, or you're anticipating one, I know that much of higher ed has not quite taken the leap here because they just don't see the costs, the savings that have been promised by VDI. And I have to say, we have actually spent a pretty good chunk of change to get to where we are. So our, I'd say all said, from the professional services to acquiring the hardware, acquiring the licenses, and even with the lessons learned, money that we shouldn't have spent that we did, we have probably put $500,000 or more into this environment. From this point forward, we think that we're going to make those investments pay off in spades. So that's the one comment I hear from my peers when they hear that we've taken a step. The first question I ask is, how much did it cost you, or is it really going to save us money? And I really do think that the combination, even so with your hypervisor, there are actually open source, and Microsoft is bringing Hyper-V into an affordable arena. So whether you go VMware, Citrix, Microsoft, or even some open source options that are out there, you can make that component very affordable. And I would, and in fact, it would be more affordable today than it was when we started this project. When you have partners like Tegile in the storage space, it makes storage far less expensive than it has been traditionally, especially when you get the optimization aspects of the compression and dedupe. But bottom line, what you need to sort of go into this with your eyes wide open is that there will be costs associated with acquiring the foundation, and then once you have that in, your costs, your savings in both your people cost and having to maintain systems, your cost in power is significant. Sorry, not cost, but the savings, and then just the know-how of how to move from where you are to where you need to be. You need to make sure you pick a good partner, and the dollars we've spent there, which frankly were not as significant as you might think. We would have paid twice what we paid for the advice that we got, just because we think it saved money pretty significantly across the entire project. But so listen to your peers, map out your strategy, make sure that you have those good partners. You want to make sure that you really evaluate all the different pieces and the costs associated with that. And then make sure that through the process, you'll have your guinea pigs that are going to run your first virtual desktop or be running off an application that's virtualized out of the server room. We check in with them on a regular basis and make sure that the user experience is at least as good as or not better than what they've had in the past. Because if our end users are sending word out to the rest of the campus that the experience is laggy or spotty, there's no way we're going to talk others into following the same path. So again, it's not that we were babysitting or taking care of those users, but we were checking in with them often because we wanted to make sure that our environment was delivering what it promised to deliver. So the mistakes that we made. So the way that information is stored in these storage arrays is based on a LUN, and those LUNs are connected to cache points or to cache points that are supporting multiple groups of desktops. And so the environment that I explained earlier, where we were taking those 1,000 desktops and separating them throughout different groupings so that that we weren't impacted by one of those groupings going down, we only came to that conclusion based on experience. So there were a number of times where we threw 250 desktops into one group, and then when that particular group came down, and it came down for, again, just lack of experience in not knowing the impact of applying a patch, or not knowing the impact of a power outage, or not knowing the impact of upgrading. Not following the right steps resulted in us losing a whole bunch of desktops. And fortunately, that group tended to be open access computers versus someone's actual workstation. So we got away with experienced a lot of pain with that, but we, once we quickly recovered from that, we just learned to essentially separate our desktops across, just like you would your your server processes, you want to make sure that we had high availability and redundancy across the board. We underestimated the needed RAM. As you provision the machines that you want to have running this, you want to go for as fast and as well-heeled machines as you possibly can get, especially in the area of RAM, because it's that RAM that's going to be leveraging, or it's going to be driving a lot of the speed and responsiveness of a virtual desktop environment. We underestimated the need of storage when we began. That's when we were introduced to Tegile, and they solved that problem for us. But I'm telling you that now, just to be prepared. You just have to do the math. How much space do you feel you're going to give each user in a desktop environment, and then just extrapolate it out. But one thing that you have to remember is that you don't have to add the cost or the size of the base image, right? So our base image is Microsoft operating system. We have Office, and we have Adobe. We give that universally across our entire campus, and a few browsers, right? So that's the common core for every desktop we roll out. We only pay for that once, right? So that's stored on our storage once, and then using Unidesk, it leverages that one instance and delivers it out to every one of our single desktops. So we just have to figure out how many terabytes, or not terabytes, sorry, but megabytes we want on top of that base image for people's individual storage or additional applications that we want them to have. And so that's what you have to sort of figure in is, if you have 1,000 users or 2,000 users or whatever, figure out how many desktops you're going to have, and then how much per desktop you want to give them. We underestimated our learning curve. I mean, it's sort of a silly thing to do because we were coming into unknown territory, but I had a lot of confidence in the capabilities of my team, and I had a lot of confidence in the capabilities of KIS. And even with that, getting to know our base virtualization technology, VMware, as well as Unidesk and Tegile, and frankly just the daily, weekly, monthly maintenance that comes with these new environments, I really highly recommend that the project that you pursue include training every step of the way, and not just during deployment, but setting regular regimens up so that all of your staff cross-trained in the event of an incident. The more people you have to react, the better. We didn't really understand the difference of storage for regular workloads versus the VDI workloads. So instead of just storing items randomly, storing things in association with transactional data, for example, or in tables and rows like database type information. With VDI, you have especially in the Tegile environment, we have this benefit of having front-end solid state technology that's able to quickly read and write information, and when it stores randomly in the back end, and needs that the VMware and Tegile software working in concert with each other to make sure that when that's recalled in the future, that it's done so in a speedy and efficient manner. So it uses it uses the storage differently based on the use. What we've come to learn is that Tegile does both really well. It does both VDI support as well as traditional storage, but in just the way that it stores and the amount of space that we needed to provision, that was a learning curve for us. Last thing is that we just want to make sure that we didn't have a real good understanding how these components affected each other. So VMware has its own path of upgrades. vSphere had its own path of upgrades. Unidesk is improving itself on a regular basis. So it had updates and patches, and Tegile had upgrades and patches since we've owned it. So all of these, and shouldn't be anything new to anyone in IT, but understanding how applying those impacts the rest of your VDI or virtualization environment is important. But so the question is, has it been worth it? Well, I'll tell you. You can see the slide, and I won't try to just read the slide, but let me just tell you a quick story, which is that we have one of the main goals that we've been trying to get to with all this is not only providing desktop environment experience for our employees, so whether that's registrar to an administrative assistant to a faculty member, we wanted to make sure that we were able to actually send out on demand certain applications for certain types of people. And smart or not, one of our first guinea pigs for this was actually the president of the institution. And a number of times the presidents come to us wanting specific access to specific applications, and all we had to do was to go into Unidesk, add the application, have him restart his desktop, and it was there. He's often on the road, speaking throughout our community. Like I said, it's a big, wide area, and he is sometimes away at conferences. So we don't actually have to have physical access to his desktop in order to make changes. Biggest issue that we've had with him really is just making sure that he knows when he's on his virtual desktop versus when he's on his physical desktop of his laptop. And because they're so similar that we started actually changing our virtual desktop background so he knew when he was in one versus the other. But as far as performance and as far as his ability to get his job done, it wasn't impacted at all. The second story is that we have a program, even though we're only a 2-year school, we have a relationship with a 4-year university nearby where we deliver a computer science degree in 3 years, and we've defined cohorts that literally go around the year for 3 straight years and come out of the experience with a 4-year degree, having never left our 2-year college campus. So those students will sometimes take courses that are delivered by a California State University Monterey Bay instructor and sometimes being delivered by a Hartnell instructor. And each one of those had different application requirements that those students would need in order to complete their course. So the request came in from both instructors, actually from multiple instructors in the program. It says, we need the following programs. We were able to actually create, based on that single image, a pool that was specifically for a cohort of students that were going to be working together. And we were able to put that together in a very short amount of time, and that's now accessible by the students regardless of where they are at. So they don't have to be fighting for lab time on campus. They don't have to be on specific computers running certain applications. They can literally have access to this virtual desktop anywhere they have internet access. We don't have to use VNC or any type of tunneling into our firewall because, in essence, by connecting to virtual desktop, they are getting into and inside our firewall in a very secure fashion. So we saved thousands of dollars in hardware, energy, and personnel costs for sure. But to me, making our board of trustees and my president and our faculty and our staff happier with our response time from IT was an incredible experience. But it still didn't top the feedback I've been getting from Hartnell College students who basically say, I no longer have to race home from my job, change my clothes, race back to campus, try to get and hope I have access to a computer either in a library or lab. I can actually just find the internet anywhere and get my work done. And that's, to me, part of the purpose that we, as the IT organization, exist on the college campus. And we think that because we've spent this money on this infrastructure, it's just the beginning. We think that there are many other opportunities that we can take advantage of. The flexibility for us to deliver on-demand applications from semester to semester is really now within our grasp because we've We've gone through the learning. We've acquired the infrastructure. We just need to determine how it is we're going to use it next. So what I'd like to do is now switch gears here and allow Stephen Otero to show you a little bit of how this works behind the scenes. Steve, that's your cue.
All right, thank you, Matt. Hope you guys can hear me. All right, so Matt talked about us being able to deploy applications and sending them out to our users and update our labs. One of the things that we're going to do here is just going to show you how to create an application layer and how easy it is and how quick we can do that. So in my Unidesk Management Console, all I have to do is go over to my Layers option, and I can go ahead and create a layer. Now what you want to do is go ahead and make sure your layer has a name on it. For this, I'm just going to go ahead and give it my initials for demonstration. You also want to make sure that you include your application's version number and build number. What we do whenever that's possible. Sometimes applications don't have those version or build numbers, so you can actually we use the date if that's not an option for us. So I'm just going to go ahead and use today's date. Once you've filled out all your details and your information, you want to go ahead and select your operating system that you're going to be applying this to. So everything here is Windows 7, so we only have one operating system on this campus. Everything we do is Windows 7. We go ahead and select it. We also want to select the install machine. This is going to be the machine that we use to install the software. So if I'm installing Microsoft Office, if I'm installing Adobe, we need to spin up a virtual machine that we can actually perform all those actions on. So we go ahead and select that. I'm just going to go ahead and select Install For. And we'll go ahead and go next. Prerequisite layers. These are for applications that might require another plugin or software in order to run. So some applications might require Java. So if the application I'm needing needs Java, then I'd go ahead and go through and find my available layer and check Java or whatever it is that I need. We don't need to do this for this demo. I'm going to install a Notepad++ on a layer. It doesn't have any prerequisites. We can also assign an icon. So icons make it easier for us to identify what the software is when we're selecting it in a layer to apply to our template. I'm just going to leave it as demo. Once I've confirmed that all my settings and all the details I have for that layer are correct, I'm just going to go ahead and select Create Layer. Oh, that did not work. Let's change the installer machine. Our installer machine looks like it might be having a problem. What happens is when our installer machine is running, Unidesk will actually kick that up, turn on the installer machine for us. I'm just going to show you what that looks like. Once Unidesk transitions, kicks over vSphere. I'm sorry. Unidesk will go ahead and turn on our installer machine in the vCenter. So I can go over here and I can see my installer machine is turned on. I already had it turned on, so we can take a look and see how that works. I'm going to console into my install machine. I can console into it, and I can go ahead and run my application. Since I'm using Notepad, I can go ahead and use the installer that I've already put on the desktop, or I can use the USB. If I have a USB thumb drive with the software that I want to load, I can select that from here. If I have an ISO file, I can go ahead and select that from here and install from an ISO. Or if I have a network drive, I can map to it and begin the installation. So here I've already put the exe on the desktop, so I'm going to go ahead and run that. screen is moved over a little bit for me. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. You'll go ahead and just follow the same process as though I had a physical machine here. Just go step by step. I'm going to go ahead and go next. I'm going to go ahead and agree. We'll go through all the defaults here. And we're just going to install the software. Once I'm done with the software, once I'm done installing it, I've made all my changes that I need to. There's no additional changes I need to make for this software application layer. I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. So I can see it install the software on my installer machine. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I don't need that open anymore. And I have that executable on a desktop. I don't want that there because I don't want it to be part of my layer. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. And what we want to do is, since I deleted it, I'm going to empty the trash can, because I don't want that part of our installation. Once we've completed it, we go back to our management console in Unidesk, and I would finalize my layer. SO demo. So I select Finalize, and what that'll do is it'll turn off my install machine. It restarts the machine, it creates the layer, and saves all that information, everything, all the steps and all the process I did. If we go back to the vCenter, we can see that the install machine is starting to has completed its process. You can actually see that here. Unidesk lets me to know where the process is, how far along we are. It's finalizing the layer right now. It's in the process of running. Hasn't quite finished it. I'm going to go ahead and close that in from that window. Once the layer is finalized, you'll get a notice on it that it's deployable. So Unidesk already restarted that layer. It created the layer. Now I have a layer with the software that I want, and I can deploy it to whatever desktops I have. I can deploy it to 1 desktop. I can deploy it to 10 desktops. I can deploy it to 20. Let's go ahead and deploy it to 1 desktop right now. So I'm going to go back to my management console here. I'm going to go to Desktops. These are all the desktops that I have in our system right now that we've created through Unidesk. I'm just going to shorten this. I have some test desktops already, so I'm just going to search for those. And let's choose OPAC 3. I want to apply that layer, application layer, just to this desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to Edit Desktops. Now, the desktop's already created. It has everything that I need on it already, so all I want to do is add the layer that we just created. So I go down to Application Assignments. It'll populate all the applications that I have available. These are all the layers that are in our system. And I'm going to look for that SO demo. Down here, I go ahead and select it. Now I can see that SO demo appears right here on the right-hand side. It gives me the version number. That's all I want to do. Everything else is fine. I'm going to go ahead and confirm and complete the installation. So I'm going to go ahead and click Update Desktop. Actually, one more thing. Before I confirm and complete the desktop, I want to go ahead and select the maintenance because I want to tell the system when do I want to apply the layer. So I can tell it to use a standard maintenance schedule, the default, maintenance schedule, and I can switch from different options here. Or I can say as soon as possible. Now when you select as soon as possible, it's going to log whoever is on the machine out and restart their machine. Or I can say a specific day and time. Right now I'm just going to say as soon as possible because I know no one's using this desktop. Now I can go to confirm and complete. And I'm going to say update desktop. So what Unidesk does now is it goes back to the vCenter, and that specific VDI will shut it down, restart it, and the application will apply. Well, that's restarting. It's just like a computer, so it's the same restart time, actually a little faster restart time than if I had a physical machine. But we've already applied this layer, this application layer, to one of our other desktops that we can verify. So I can go back to vCenter, and I can see here that that action that I just did, I can see vCenter is working on it. It's processing the virtual desktop. It's in the process of completing it. I can see that it's working on that OPAC 3. It's shutting it down because it's applying it. But we're going to go ahead and go back to OPAC 2. We're going to console into that one. So OPAC 2, you can see that Notepad, that layer was applied to Notepad. Notepad++ was applied to OPAC 2 station. Now if I wanted to do this to 10 stations, 5 stations, all I'd have to do is select them and go through the same process. For this instance, we only did 1 station, and it makes it so much easier on our staff and our lab coordinators. Matt mentioned we have 3 campuses. We have a satellite campus in King City. They have software that needs to be updated. I can do that from here rather than taking a 45-minute drive to install 2 applications on a lab of 10 computers or a lab of 20 computers. With that, are there any questions?
We have a ton of great questions coming in, so I will start from the beginning. It says, do your users access their desktops or applications remotely? If so, what is the experience?
So our users from home, are they accessing our virtual desktops?
I assume.
Yes. Yes, they are. So I'm one who uses it, so from home as well. So if there's an issue on the weekend and they need IT to come in or respond to a trouble ticket, or someone can't access a server, I can actually log in from my house through the VDI console, VMware console, and connect to the system. I can connect to servers, I can connect to desktops. We have a number of faculty who actually use a remote desktop pool that we've created, and they can access Microsoft Office, Photoshop, various applications. We have some distance education instructors who are in other states, and it serves as a resource for them to connect to the campus, access network drives, and other resources.
It does also, it also depends on how good the internet connection from home is, but it's not the environment of our campus that's slowing them down in that case.
Okay, next question, or are we still answering that one? Okay, next question. How do you handle the Windows licensing for off-campus users that remote in?
We actually pay the additional Microsoft license fee. It's part of our Microsoft agreement for off-campus users. So we have our site license, but then we also buy an additional package that will cover if somebody's running it on a Mac, if somebody is covering it on a tablet as well.
Okay. Do you use 3D applications on your campus, and if so, how does this affect your bandwidth requirements while using the VDI solution?
We actually haven't virtualized our CAD lab just yet. That's something that we've been looking at and interested in doing. So our 3D software is one application. It's not all of our labs. We have over 600 desktops that are virtualized, and we're still building out because we want to get up to that. We want to eventually virtualize everything and get all of our offices. But the computer lab software is or the CAD is one that we haven't done yet.
Liz, I can add to that. This is Tom Rose from Unidesk. So we have a lot of other college customers who are using AutoCAD, ArcGIS, and other 3D applications in their engineering labs, and they tell us it's running very well in VDI. They say there's 3 keys to that to get it to run well. Number 1 is IOPS, and certainly with Tegile arrays, that's been satisfied. So Hartnell's got plenty of I/O. The second one is obviously graphics performance. And so having NVIDIA graphics offload cards or Teradicci offload cards, they say, is key to making those applications run well. And then the third one is being able to package those in some way to deliver those to the desktops. And as Hartnell just demonstrated, Unidesk has the ability to layer those applications pretty easily. So those are really the 3 ingredients for running the 3D apps in VDI.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is that we had made the upgrades in our infrastructure prior to going virtual, and this is a few years ago. Actually, it's a few years before I even got to school. Our entire network is at least 1 gig, if not 10 gigs, throughout the 3 different locations and campuses. So it does require that there's a pipe that's healthy between the person who's running the application and the server that's delivering out the application.
Okay. Is the licensing for each software application based on users or machines? In other words, if a registered user tries to access his or her virtual desktop with a new unregistered laptop, will it be rejected?
No. If I'm understanding the question correct, the way we have it set up are through pool access. So if I have 30 licenses of Adobe Photoshop, I can set up those 30 desktops for only those 30 users. Or I can have it as an instance. Once the 30 virtual desktops are active, no one else can grab one of those desktops until someone's finished with it. So it'll prevent them from accessing that. I'm not sure if that's the question that's being asked. Is that?
Okay, in the interest of time, I know a couple people wanted to say a couple other things real super quickly. A lot of people have been submitting some great questions. I will make sure that the questions that are being asked right now get forwarded to the speakers and that they can follow up with you individually to answer your questions. So there are a lot of really great questions coming in. So from the speakers, do your follow-up stuff now.
Okay. If it's my turn, I guess. This is Brad Kudo. I'm an enterprise account representative from KIS, based here at headquarters in Fremont, California. I've been the account manager with Hartnell, worked with Hartnell for about 10 years prior to Mr. Coombs coming on board. And Matt, I really appreciate all the great kudos you've given us, but I would like to point out that really building a partnership that we have is a two-way street. Your willingness and your staff's willingness to work with us to allow us to really sit down and collaborate on a successful project is really the pinnacle of our success. You've touched on quite a number of things that I kind of had in my my list of talking points, but really our goal is to build VDI as fast or faster. It truly is possible, and I appreciated the question about how do we bring things like streaming video and CAD into this environment. The technology is there. It is being deployed and utilized today. Some of the additional value adds that Matt touched on, training. We are a firm believer in making sure that our clients are well educated, understand all of the technology that they just invested in. So we not only provide as-built documentation, but also how-to documentation. It's our goal to make sure that you are so well entrenched in the technology that we can turn the keys over to you and allow you to manage it going forward. We're always here as a lifeline, but it's not our role to be in perpetual consulting. So KIS, again, headquartered in Fremont, California. We have 5 offices across the United States, but we go where the business is. There's really no geographic that we don't touch. We were founded in 1988. We've been around 25 years. We've got a very deep and talented technical bench with multiple disciplines, not only around virtualization, but a lot of other IT solutions and infrastructures. So we appreciate you taking the time to hear about our successes at Hartnell College. Steve, thank you for the demo. They've given me just about a minute or so to promote KIS, but if there's anything that we can do for you, you can check us out at www.kiscc.com. This webinar today is part of our own ongoing knowledge series. We also host other webinars as well as live events, lunch and learns at various regions across the U.S. So take a look at our website. There's a lot of good information there. And if you're interested in knowing more on other technologies, maybe you can join us at another event in the near future. So with that, I will turn it back over. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Brad. I'll go next quickly. My name is Tom Rose. I'm the VP of Marketing at Unidesk. And just wanted to thank, again, Matt and Steve for the great demo and sharing their VDI success story. And also to KIS, who's been designing Unidesk into their VDI projects for quite a long time now. And also to Tegile, because we were seeing a lot of now joint customers with Tegile. The Tegile Unidesk combination is becoming very popular in both Citrix Zen Desktop and VMware Horizon View projects. So just very quickly, Unidesk, as you've seen in the demo, is emerging as the leading VDI management platform for provisioning virtual desktops, delivering applications, optimizing storage, and also ensuring personalization. You know, obviously the number of applications that Hartnell has is typical of the colleges and universities. That's why we have so many customers now who are using Unidesk. You can see on the right there. And Steve, if you could hit the animation. You know, the real challenge in VDI, you know, the connectivity problem has been addressed by VMware and Citrix, but the management problem still is out there. And how do you really, you know, deliver applications, provision desktops, optimize storage? In the past, it's required a set of point tools that are very complex and hard to use, and lots of applications don't take well to virtualization. Unidesk has changed the equation with our layering technology. With one unified console, as you saw in the demo, you can layer pretty much everything, whether it's Wolfram Mathematico or SPSS or AutoCAD or all the applications that Steve just showed. And typically, you can do that in less than 30 minutes. And because all apps can be layered neatly, you can have one clean gold image of Windows, as Matt spoke about. And especially in colleges and universities, Unidesk can provision both persistent and non-persistent desktops off the same gold image with the same storage efficiency. So you can satisfy both faculty and staff as well as classrooms and labs with one solution and have that app delivery and personalization all there. So I don't want to leave Tegile out, so I'm going to turn it over to Rob Commons and let him conclude with Tegile.
All right, thanks, Tom. Just to wrap up, we heard a lot of good things about the entire technology stack from Matt. Tegile's a hybrid and all-flash storage vendor, and we work in virtual desktop, virtual server, as well as do a real nice job of accelerating database performance and balancing out the performance that Flash brings, but not leaving the end user holding the bag on the capacity question. So that's why we still use the economics of dollars per gigabyte with spinning disk and combine that so we can address all sorts of different concurrent applications like you saw in the webinar today. So I'd just like to wrap up and say thank you to everybody. And I know, as Liz mentioned, there were some questions that we did not get to. We will get those answered to you right after the webinar. Thanks a lot.
Okay, guys, thank you again for attending today. And as I said at the beginning of the webinar, this webinar is being recorded. You will hopefully get a follow-up email tomorrow, by end of day tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, definitely by Monday. So yeah, you'll get a copy of the slides of today's presentation, and you will get a copy of the recording so you can share it with people and your colleagues and rewatch it. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to email me. And I hope you all have a great day.